The 1980s were one of the most daring decades in farming history. Engineers dreamed big, radical designs, futuristic electronics, groundbreaking features that looked unstoppable on paper. Some of these machines were brilliant. So brilliant that they could have changed farming forever. But instead, they collapsed under bad timing, high prices, unreliable tech, or simply a world that wasn't ready for them. Get ready, because these are the 10 farming machines from the 1980s that were pure genius, but doomed to fail. Number 1. Allis-Chalmers 4W305. The Allis-Chalmers 4W305 is one of those tractors that feels legendary even if you've never seen one in person. Released during a time when farming was becoming tougher, machines were getting bigger, and efficiency was becoming the driving force, the 4W305 was meant to be Allis-Chalmers' ultimate answer to the growing horsepower race. This tractor packed an enormous 753 cubic inch 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine capable of producing 305 horsepower. Huge numbers for the early 1980s. It wasn't just big, it was engineered with purpose. The full-time 4WD system gave it superior traction, while its hydraulic system was powerful enough to handle the heaviest implements of the decade. Farmers who operated it said it felt like it could pull a mountain out of the ground. The cab was modern for its time too. Better visibility, more comfort, and less operator fatigue. It was supposed to be the tractor that pushed Allis-Chalmers into a new era of dominance. But reality had other plans. The 4W305 arrived at the worst possible time, the 1980s farm crisis. Land values crashed, interest rates skyrocketed, and farms across the United States were going bankrupt. Nobody had the money to buy premium tractors, no matter how revolutionary they were. Its price tag was also extremely high due to the advanced engineering involved. Allis-Chalmers was already struggling financially and couldn't afford marketing or competitive financing options. The tractor wasn't unreliable, it was simply unaffordable. Very few units were ever sold, and instead of becoming a success story, it became a symbol of missed timing. Today, collectors admire the 4W305 as a visionary machine, too advanced for the decade it was born into. Number 2. John Deere 8850. The John Deere 8850 was supposed to be the tractor that defined the 1980s horsepower war. Deere wanted something big, bold, and innovative, so they built their first and only V8-powered tractor. With a massive 955 cubic inch engine producing around 370 horsepower, the 8850 looked like something out of a science fiction film. When it fired up, you could feel the ground vibrate. The tractor had a commanding presence, and Deere marketed it as the machine built for the toughest fields, largest implements, and longest hours. Farmers were excited at first, but then reality set in. The V8 engine wasn't designed from scratch as a tractor power plant. Deere essentially merged two 6-cylinder blocks into one. That design choice created major heat distribution problems. Under heavy load, which is exactly how farmers used these big 4WD tractors, the engine would overheat frequently. Head gasket failures became shockingly common, and replacing them was a nightmare because the engine was packed too tightly into the frame. Mechanics hated the V8 because everything about it was complicated. Repairs took longer, parts were expensive, and diagnostics were difficult. Farmers quickly lost trust. A tractor that big should have been reliable, not sensitive. And during the farm economic crisis, nobody wanted an expensive machine with high repair costs. The 8850 wasn't a bad idea, it was simply executed poorly. Deere tried to innovate fast, but the rushed engineering hurt the machine's reputation forever. Today, the 8850 is a collector favorite for its uniqueness, but in the 1980s, it became known as the tractor that tried too hard and failed spectacularly. Number 3. Case IH4994. The Case IH4994 was meant to be the crown jewel of the 4WD tractor lineup following the merger of Case and International Harvester. With more than 400 horsepower coming from the massively reliable Cummins 855 engine, the 4994 had both strength and durability. It was built for the largest farms, operations with thousands of acres that needed serious power to pull deep rippers, huge cultivators, and heavy seeding equipment. Everything about the tractor screamed toughness: thick steel frame, powerful hydraulics, a roomy cab, and a transmission built for continuous heavy load work. But instead of becoming a flagship superstar, the 4994 became one of the rarest Case IH tractors ever made. Not because it was bad, but because it arrived during corporate chaos and economic disaster. When Case and IH merged, farmers were confused and uncertain. Would their old dealers support the new machines? Would parts still be available? Would the brand survive? That uncertainty killed the momentum of even the best tractors, including the 4994. At the same time, the mid-1980s farm crisis meant farmers were trying to survive, not expand. A high-horsepower premium 4WD tractor was the last thing most wanted to invest in. Despite being strong, reliable, and exceptionally capable, the 4994 simply didn't sell. Only a very small number left the factory. Those who owned one often say it was one of the best high-horsepower tractors they ever used. But the combination of bad timing, a stressed company, and a struggling economy turned a potential legend into an overlooked machine. Today, its rarity makes it a collectible gem, a tractor that deserved much more success than it got. Number 4. Ford TW35. When Ford released the TW35 in the mid-1980s, it was clear they were trying to compete aggressively in the big tractor market. This model delivered around 19.2 horsepower and featured a turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel engine, dual power transmission, heavy-duty axles, and a strong hydraulic system. On paper, the TW35 was exactly what Ford needed to stay competitive. It was powerful, modern, and had a well-designed cab that offered better operator comfort and visibility. But Ford made one critical mistake. They pushed the limits of their engine too far. The TW35 produced good power, but at the cost of running extremely hot. Under heavy fieldwork, many farmers reported overheating issues and cracked cylinder heads. The cooling system simply wasn't designed to handle continuous high-load operation, something farmers demanded from a tractor of this size. The transmission also became a weak point. Dual power failures were common when operators used the tractor for heavy tillage. Repairs were expensive, and downtime frustrated farmers. Competitors like John Deere and Case IH were producing bigger, better cooled, and more reliable tractors in the same horsepower range, making the TW35 look underpowered and fragile in comparison. Another issue was brand perception. Ford was well respected for smaller and mid-sized tractors, but farmers didn't fully trust the company in the high horsepower segment. They wanted bulletproof performance, not borderline engineering. The TW35 wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't strong enough to survive the intense competition of the 1980s. It had potential, but the engineering miscalculations held it back. Today, it remains a reminder that power is meaningless without durability. Number 5. Massey Ferguson 3690. The Massey Ferguson 3690 was one of the most ambitious tractors the company ever produced. With 210 horsepower, modern electronics, the highly praised Dynashift transmission, and a stylish, comfortable cab, the 3690 felt like the future. It was smooth to operate, quiet inside, and came with advanced controls that made fieldwork easier and more efficient. Many farmers who tested it said it was years ahead of other tractors in the same class. Mechanically, the 3690 was strong. Its engine produced excellent torque, making it great for tillage, hauling, and heavy PTO work. The transmission offered seamless shifting, a big step forward from older manual systems. The tractor was also fuel-efficient for its size and had excellent visibility, something operators loved during long field days. But Massey Ferguson was collapsing financially during this time. The company was drowning in debt, losing market share, and struggling with management issues. Farmers were hesitant to buy a tractor from a company that might not survive the next few years. Even though the machine itself was great, the brand's uncertain future scared away buyers. Another problem was the electronics. While advanced, they were also sensitive. Moisture, dust, and poor grounding could cause electronic failures, problems that were expensive to fix. Mechanics were still unfamiliar with these systems, making repairs slower and more costly. The 3690 wasn't destroyed by poor engineering, it was destroyed by poor timing. Had it been released under stronger financial conditions, it might have become a legend. Today, it stands as one of the most impressive but unlucky tractors of the 1980s. Number 6. Steiger Cougar. CR1225. The Steiger Cougar CR1225 is a machine that deserved far more success than it ever received. Built during a time when Steiger was known for rugged, no-nonsense 4WD tractors, the CR1225 represented everything the company did best: brute strength, simple engineering, and long-lasting durability. Powered by a massive Caterpillar 3406 diesel engine, this tractor could deliver jaw-dropping horsepower and torque. Farmers who used it said it felt unstoppable. Whether pulling huge cultivators, deep rippers, or big air seeders, the Cougar always had more power waiting. Its frame was built like a tank. Hydraulics were reliable, and the cab, while not luxurious, was comfortable enough for long days. Steiger's philosophy was simple: build tractors that worked and keep them easy to repair. The CR1225 followed that perfectly. It used standard components, so parts were easy to find, and mechanics loved how easy it was to work on. There was nothing overly complicated or electronic about it. So why did it fail? Because Steiger didn't fail in engineering, they failed in finances. By the early 1980s, the company was drowning in debt, dealing with rising interest rates and struggling to compete with giant corporations like John Deere and Case. Farmers were scared to buy a tractor from a company that seemed unstable. What if parts support disappeared? What if dealers closed? Once Steiger went bankrupt and was eventually absorbed into Case IH, many great tractors, including the powerful CR1225, were quietly discontinued. The tragedy is that nothing was wrong with the tractor itself. It was tough, reliable, and powerful. It was simply a victim of financial collapse. Today, owners cherish these machines because they know how much potential was wasted when the CR1225 disappeared from the market. Number 7. Deutz-Fahr DX 830. The Deutz-Fahr DX 830 is one of the most visually striking and technologically advanced tractors ever produced in the 1980s. Its futuristic design, sharp lines, and bold styling made it stand out instantly. But what really set it apart was its air-cooled engine, a hallmark of Deutz engineering. Unlike traditional liquid-cooled engines, the air-cooled system eliminated radiators, hoses, coolants, and many common overheating problems. It was fuel-efficient, simple, and surprisingly durable. The DX 830 also featured sophisticated electronics, a comfortable cab, and controls that were very advanced for their time. European farmers appreciated the engineering and efficiency it offered. It was built for long-term reliability, no unnecessary complexity, no fragile cooling components, and fewer maintenance points. In many ways, it was ahead of its time. But in North America, its biggest target market, the tractor struggled badly. American farmers didn't trust air-cooled engines. They believed water-cooled designs were stronger for heavy-duty pulling and long field days. Even though the Deutz design was excellent, the perception hurt it. Another major issue was parts and dealer support. Deutz had a very limited network in the US, and farmers didn't want to buy a tractor that required specialized components and mechanics. The electronics were another barrier. While advanced, they were also unusual for the era. Farmers wanted simplicity, not futuristic wiring and control modules. The DX 830 wasn't a failure because of poor engineering. It failed because it didn't fit the culture or expectations of the market. It was trying to win. Today, it's seen as a visionary tractor that arrived 1 decade too early. Number 8. Versatile 1150. The Versatile 1150 remains one of the most intimidating tractors ever built. With more than 470 horsepower from its massive Cummins KTA 1150 engine, this tractor was pure muscle on 4 wheels. It was built to handle enormous tillage tools, pull huge air seeders, and work in the toughest conditions. Everything was heavy-duty, from the frame to the axles to the drivetrain. The 1150 was built not for ordinary farming, but for farms with massive acreage and extreme workloads. In typical Versatile fashion, the engineering was simple and reliable. Mechanics loved it because despite its power, it wasn't overcomplicated. The cab was basic but functional. The tractor didn't try to be fancy, it tried to be strong, and it succeeded. But the problem wasn't the machine itself, it was the market. The 1980s simply didn't need a tractor this big. The farm economy was collapsing, farmers were cutting costs, and fuel prices were high. The 1150 was expensive to buy and extremely thirsty. Its gigantic engine consumed fuel at a rate that scared farmers already struggling financially. Another issue was brand perception. Versatile was loved for affordable, simple 4WD tractors. Farmers didn't expect or trust the company to build an ultra-high horsepower premium machine. Many felt the 1150 didn't match Versatile's usual identity. Add in limited dealer support compared to larger companies like John Deere and Case IH, and it's easy to see why sales were tiny. Very few units were ever produced, making it one of the rarest giants of the 1980s. Today, those who own one appreciate it as a piece of agricultural history, a machine that was too big, too bold, and too early for its time. Number 9. Belarus 1770. The Belarus 1770 was an interesting attempt by Soviet manufacturers to break into Western markets. At around 170 horsepower, it offered impressive power for a surprisingly low price. On paper, it was a great deal, big performance for far less money than a Deere, Case, or Ford. For farmers struggling financially in the 1980s, the Belarus seemed like a smart, budget-friendly option. But the reality was much different. The Belarus 1770 was extremely rough compared to Western tractors. The cab was loud, uncomfortable, and poorly insulated. Controls were stiff, the driving experience was clunky, and visibility was limited. Soviet engineering prioritized durability and simplicity, but not comfort. The biggest problem was reliability. While the engine itself was strong and long-lasting, the electrical system was notoriously unreliable. Wiring issues, failing starters, weak alternators, and electrical shorts were extremely common. These problems frustrated farmers who were used to the reliability of Western brands. Part supply was another disaster. The limited dealership network meant farmers often waited weeks or months for replacement components. Mechanics unfamiliar with the design struggled with repairs. The Belarus 1770 wasn't truly a bad tractor. It simply wasn't refined enough for the Western market. Farmers expected comfort, reliability, smooth operation, and strong dealer support. The Belarus delivered power, but not much else. Still, the 1770 has a unique place in history. It showed that raw horsepower alone isn't enough to succeed in modern farming. A tractor must earn a farmer's trust, and the Belarus 1770 never did. Number 10. Fiat 180/90 Turbo. In Europe, the Fiat 180/90 Turbo is an agricultural icon. With its stylish design, smooth transmission, and powerful 6-cylinder turbo diesel, it was beloved by farmers in Italy, Spain, France, and the UK. It was famous for its torque, reliability, fuel efficiency, and surprisingly nimble handling for a tractor of its size. In European conditions, vineyards, orchards, mixed farming, and medium-sized fields, the 180/90 excelled. But when Fiat attempted to enter the North American market in the 1980s, the tractor struggled immediately. The biggest issue was that it simply wasn't designed for American-style farming. In the Midwest, farmers needed massive 4WD tractors capable of deep tillage and heavy pulling. The Fiat 180/90 was lighter, smaller, and lacked the hydraulic power needed for oversized implements. Its price was also high compared to local competitors. Farmers didn't want to pay premium prices for a tractor with a small dealership network and unfamiliar engineering. Parts availability was slow, and mechanics weren't trained to work on Fiat systems. The cab, though comfortable by European standards, felt small and cramped to American farmers used to huge Case IH or John Deere cabs. Even the PTO and hydraulic setups didn't match the specific needs of large U.S. operations. Despite excellent reliability and strong performance in Europe, the 1890 was simply mismatched for the American buyer. It was a brilliant tractor, but the wrong machine for the wrong market at the wrong time. Today, collectors in Europe still adore it, but in America, it remains a forgotten experiment. These machines weren't failures. They were pioneers born in the wrong decade. Their ideas shaped modern tractors, harvesters, and farm tech in ways most people never realized. If you enjoyed this deep dive into brilliant but doomed innovations, hit like, subscribe, and tell me which machine deserved a second chance. Thanks for watching, because the next video uncovers even more forgotten machines that were years ahead of the world around them.